to our 10th on the Land. On the program this week, we're going to be looking at the wine industry. We're going to be meeting some of the young farmer regional finalists and also what you should be putting your colostrum in. But in a moment, it's farm accounting. Kerry, it's budgets, isn't it?
It is, yeah, especially for our dairy farmer guys out there. Obviously had the bad news that they're going into a second tough season with the low payout, and that is quite devastating news for a lot of them. They were hopeful that it was going to go up a bit. It's not going to head that way. We're going to have price volatility for a long time. Makes budgeting hard, but it's time to sit down and actually really have a good look at what we've been doing. We've been saying it for a while and doing it with our guys, but now it's really come crunch time. This is the season that will make or break most people.
So no carpets being lifted and things being swept under them?
No, you've got to bring it all out, and it's actually bringing in a lot more people as well. You know, we've been saying bring your farm advisor, your accountant, your banker. We're saying let's bring that circle even wider, not just from a business point of view, but also from a personal point of view. These farmers are starting to get fairly stressed out there, and we've seen one or two, the cracks are just starting to show. So we're saying bringing them some other people, even personally, to just help you out. But business-wise, you've got to look at your fertiliser people, get all those sort of tests done. What can you do to sort of minimise costs, that sort of thing.
How hard is it for a farmer or a share milker to actually bite the bullet when they themselves can't see anything? Because no more debt loading.
Yeah, there'll be a crunch time where they have to do it. We've been working pretty hard on our guys, and it's taken them a while to actually get the realisation, yep, it's time to do something. We can't carry on like we've been doing. We've got to change our attitude and approach to things. And it's just time, but with the second tough season for dairy guys, most of them are starting to think, right, we need to change our ways and front up to the issues that we're facing. The banks are going to force them eventually because they're only going to go so far with their load they're carrying.
It's interesting that if you really, really don't want to do something and you keep putting it off, when you do it, you feel about 6 inches taller.
Oh yeah, it's a big relief because you get it all off your chest. You've got people that are there willing to help you. And you're not on your own, and that's the realisation for a lot of them, that they feel like, oh, they've got to get out there and keep producing the milk and that sort of thing, but you're not on your own. There's other people then behind the scenes that want to help you and make you succeed. That's what we're all there for. We want to see you flourish. And
the banks don't want to call their loans in, they want to keep you going.
No, yeah, the banks definitely want to work with them. They have got constraints to work within, but they are being bent and sort of broken everywhere right now to make sure these guys stay on the property. They don't want to force you off, because that's bad publicity for them.
Well, apart from that, they lose a whole lot of money. Nobody wins.
Exactly, and then if they do force you off, who's going to buy the farm? Then it gets into all sort of overseas ownership issues and that sort of thing, which the banks don't want to see to be encouraging. So they want to keep the farmer on that property if they can.
So there is light at the end of a tunnel if you call in your accountant. Yep. You're saying your banker,
farm advisor, your banker.
Do you all sit in the same room at the same time?
Most of the time we do. I have been with the ones that I've been working with. Others, sometimes they can't get there, so they might be on the phone if you need to get them. It just depends on the availability of everybody, but ideally you want them there at the same time, because then everyone can come to a common plan, all bring their ideas in. Everyone's got different ideas and approaches, so it's better to have them all in one go than sort of piecemeal, and you change as you go and may not be quite as effective as what you want.
So somebody sitting there at the moment and they think that they're up to their snorkel level.
Yep.
And they're going to lose 100,000 in the next 2 years for 2 years running. So that's, say, $250,000 that they're going to have to service. We come back to interest rates, don't we?
Yes, we do. And we're getting a lot of questions right now about whether they should be fixed, floating, where they're going, up, down. And the answer is it depends on, in terms of fixed or floating, what your circumstances are. We've got an announcement coming out shortly from the Reserve Bank about what they think the OCA rate will be. They're in a really tough place.
The Reserve Bankers?
Yep. If they drop the rate, which is what everyone's expecting, the Auckland property market's going to take off again. And so we're going to have a big issue up there. House affordability's gone anyway, but they'll make it even worse.
Well, the average price is $750,000 at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and it's interesting, people are moving out of Auckland, and I can't blame them. The neat thing about Auckland is the airport, you can leave from there.
Exactly, but there's a lot of lifestyle blocks being sort of carved up now out that way. But if the Reserve Bank also dropped the rate, they're also going to be sort of affecting the dollar, which is not going to help people. There's also the fact that if they keep going the way they are, the economy may stall, or we may have sort of de-inflationary pressures. So they've got to do something. It's just a matter of timing. But there will be some cut in the next, we suspect, 6 to 9 months. And that's what a lot of the lead economists are saying. They expect it to come back a little bit. We've had increases that were a bit over the top, and now it's time for the bank to front up and say, look, we did get it slightly wrong. The dairies, that's almost a bust in their eyes from the bank's point of view, with the big hole that's left in the economy. So they've got to cut some rates to sort of get things going again. But they've got that Auckland property just sitting in the background that will be the killer.
Because, quite frankly, a dairy farmer or share milker is just going to say, well, I couldn't give a tinkers about Auckland.
True.
And Auckland is saying they couldn't give a tinkers about the dairy farmers.
This is true, but this is part of the way our economy works. One part is affected by another. So the bank have got to consider all aspects of the economy. They obviously, for Reserve Bank, it'd be ideal for them to get in there, cut the rate, and help our dairy farmers and other farmers, in the drought regions, because they get cheaper interest rates. But then it will cause further problems elsewhere in the economy, and could even cause inflationary pressures, that sort of thing, which will then put prices up. And then our guys that are on the farm have to pay a bit more when they can't afford it.
Yeah, I think last time you and I had a chat, you were talking about IRD, and of course you'll be selling capital stock.
Yes.
At the at the bottom of the market, you're going to have to buy at the top. IRD will be looking very helpfully at dairy farming and seeing what they can do to release the pressure.
They've got they've mainly just sort of at the moment looked at the drought affected farmers. They haven't done anything about the dairy farmers and whether they're selling capital stock or not to get through. They haven't been so gracious. But
because people are
selling. Yeah, they are, and I think the pressures will come on as more and more farmers face this reality. I think the government ministers will have to sit down and say, look, what can we do to help, and then give a directive to IRD to free up some sort of relief for them, because they just can't afford to have the tax bill coming their way.
I mean, that seriously is one of the problems, isn't it? And that's where they talk to you. And yes. I guess that you, I mean, I know that I've talked to you about things and you've said, don't worry, Rob, I'll fix that. And you do.
Yeah, that's our job as the accountant. We should be there helping out where we can, giving their guidance.
Taking that load off me.
Yep, and if we know before you go and do anything, we can make it even easier. Afterwards, there can be some things can be done, but if you're up front and say, look, I'm planning on selling, 250 cattle, what's the implications? We can say, well, this is what you're looking at, and we can put a strategy around it to help ease the load. But it is a matter of just actually making that phone call and talking to the accountant.
And if somebody rings you and says, look, I've got to the back of the silage pit already, I need to do such and such and such and such. They're buying at the top of the price range for
yeah, well then we'll try and find a strategy to get them through. We can put them in contact with people if they need to sort of get cheaper money, bank loans, whatever. Bring the right parties in to sort of work together to get them through.
Well, thank goodness you're there, buddy. Thank you very much indeed. In just a moment, we'll be talking wine at Muddy Waters Winery. Their season as far as Waipa has been concerned, is it good?
It's been a fantastic year. We're really, really happy with the quality. We don't like to get too excited too soon, but compared to previous vintages and things I've seen here in the past, the quality of the fruit coming in from our vineyards and throughout the valley, from what I hear, has been exceptionally good. So we're very optimistic about the quality across the board for whites and reds. It's really nice that we've not had disease pressure per se, so we haven't had to rush and pick things because we've had rain coming in or anything like that. So we've been very fortunate just to take our time and taste through and pick things when they're really physiologically ripe, as opposed to having that weather pressure and maybe picking things a bit sooner than we'd like to.
But the quantity is down because of a frost.
Yeah, there was a frost in Waipa late October, which damaged a little bit of the vineyards, particularly some of the things out on the hillsides, or that wasn't under frost protection. So crops will be down across the board in Waipa this year. But the quality still being high is, I guess, a good thing in retrospect. So yeah, the quantities will be down compared to last year, particularly, which was quite a large vintage.
Be another good year for Pinot?
Yeah, we think it's going to be another really great year for Pinot. It's quite early in the game. We're just pressing our reds. We started that in the last week or so that's a gradual process that we do. Most of our Pinots spend about a month in skins total time, from picking through to being pressed and then put into barrels, and then of course there's another 10 to 12 months of barrel time. The reserves will get a little bit longer, potentially 16 to 18 months. So you find sort of around January, once the malolactic fermentations have gone through, you start getting a really good idea of what's happening, but certainly very excited. And the quality of the flavours and the berries and the ferments has been really great, so we're crossing our fingers. Yeah.
You've got two strings to your bow, because you've got Greystone as well as Muddy Waters.
That's right. So Greystone started over on the hillside here 10 years ago or so, and then as the vineyards came online to full production, there was a need for us to move out of the contract facility that we were renting space in and really have our own winemaking facility. So as the vineyards came online a bit more, we looked for wineries in the region that were for sale and also looking at building on site, and we were really lucky that Muddy Waters was for sale at the time. So after a year or so of negotiations and talking to the guys about that, we ended up moving in here in 2011 and then extended the existing winery to accommodate the Greystone wines, and we've continued with Muddy Water. Really, it's such a great heritage. We've not changed anything per se, we just took that torch on and have continued making really great wine off the site from one of the older vineyards in Waipara, so it's a real treat actually.
Must be quite interesting to have both under the same roof.
Yeah, it's really interesting as winemakers, the 3 full-time winemakers, we're really respectful to the different sites as well. So what we find is that Muddy Water being organic, and we've been certified organic for quite a while now, is a slightly different winemaking process of course because of the organics. And then with Greystone being a youngest winery or younger vineyard, the style of wines you get and the soil types and everything make for 2 completely different styles of wine really. So it's really great. It's almost, well, it really is like working for 2 different wineries under one roof. So for us it's quite lucky actually. We sort of get to put 2 strings in our bow as opposed to the one, so it's quite fun.
And winemakers in New Zealand, we're getting pretty well known.
Yeah, we are, and I think in the last few years, sort of looking past the initial Sauvignon Blanc fame of the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, we've really developed as a culture and starting to try new varieties, and people have gone, well, yep, the Sauvignon Blanc thing is really well established now and we've got such a great reputation, and the focus is shifting to other varieties that can do really well here, and Waipara certainly, Pinot Noir and Riesling and Chardonnay is fantastic. Marlborough now even as well, other varieties are starting to take precedence other than just Sauvignon Blanc, so Pinot Noir. So it's nice to sort of spread our wings a little bit as a winemaking sort of fraternity and look at other varieties as well that we can do really, really well.
And if you wanted to go into Viognier or Gewürztraminer or whatever, I mean, what's involved? Do you have to rip it all out, or can you?
We do make a little bit of Gewürz at Greystone, so there's small blocks. I guess what we try and do, a lot of vineyards in the initial days will plant a few different varieties and look at what's suited to the climate. So we've got some Syrah up on the hillsides here, Chardonnay and Pinot, and then we also got Pinot on the flats down the bottom there, Gewürz and Pinot Gris. So we sort of try and match the soil types and the little microclimates within the vineyards in each region and sub-region to suit. So I think we're finding now, in Waipara particularly, that Gewürz certainly does well and Pinot Gris does grow well, but it's more about the Chardonnay, Pinot and Riesling for us, I think, here. Yeah, Hawke's Bay, those regions are a bit warmer, perhaps Viognier and things like that, but not so much down here. It's probably too cold. Yeah.
An industry that a lot of people are passionate about, not just the people who are in it, but the people who are end users. Now, after the break, we're going to have another one of those interviews with a regional young farmer as we head towards the national contest shortly.
Be Active begins here in the cold, clean, unpolluted southern oceans of New Zealand. Be Active amino acid biostimulant, natural, 100% pure. Manufactured from healthy deep-sea fish from sustainable New Zealand fisheries. New Zealand's Be Active Amino Acid Biostimulant, the way the world is growing. Working with nature, good for the plant, good for the planet. Now that's growing for good.
We'll get you thinking, think water.
I think it's all working well, Jack.
My thoughts exactly.
We'll get you thinking, think water.
This is exactly what you need.
I think that'll do the trick.
We'll get you thinking, think water.
It's all looking good. Did you bring the sauce? I can't think of everything.
We'll get you thinking, think water.
For real ideas and real solutions, just think water.
You know that saying, content is king? Well, in today's mixed media world, it's true. You need video, audio, photos and more for social media, for marketing, for communications, sales and for advertising. And you need this at a price that works with your budgets. Well, that's what we do. At Tandem, we partner with you to create the content that you can use to shout to the world or video link to a few. Connect with us and we'll help you connect to the world.
What's your background? What are you doing?
I'm a dairy farmer, so I've been dairy farming for 12 years.
And why did you want to join in the team for the grand finals of the Young Farmer of the Year?
I was pretty much just to challenge myself really and learn about the different industries and agriculture really.
Tell me a bit more about your operation. How many cows?
Well, I work for Land Corp, and we milk 900 cows just north of Kerikeri.
What's the production like been this year?
It's not too bad. We've sort of had a bit of a up and down season. It's pretty dry at the moment, so we're waiting for the winter rain at the moment.
And of course, you don't have much in the way of irrigation and all that sort of thing in Northland.
No. It's all dry farming. Yeah.
So it has been a dry year.
Yeah. We sort of had rain in December, and then it's been pretty patchy from then on, really.
Did you have to dry off early?
Well, we milk through the winter, so we've got cows calving at the moment, but all our spring cows have been dried off already.
Milking once a day?
No, still twice a day.
What has to happen to fix the dairy industry at the moment?
I have no idea. I guess New Zealand's an exporting country, so you've got to take the ups and the downs, and so just got to ride out the downs, which it is at the moment, and then wait till the good times to come, I guess.
And I guess it's very important to limit all spending if you can.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, most guys are down to what they have to spend rather than what they'd like to spend, I guess.
Kerry, your computers in schools, how's it going?
It's going well. The competition's still running. It goes through till the 15th of June, and we've started getting quite a good number of entries in. So just wanted to, encourage schools again to get those entries in. And it's about a competition by Hewlett-Packard. They've put up $25,000 towards hardware and software and technology solutions for rural schools. Schools under 300 students. So put an application in, get creative, tell us what you can do, what it would mean to you at your school for that, and perhaps even what it might mean to your wider community and how it might support the community as well. So
for the 3 schools that haven't applied yet, do they go to your website?
Yeah, they do. They can certainly download the entry form and all the criteria from our website. So.
Gypsy Day.
Oh yes, the annual thing. Everyone's on the move. The road's full of removal trucks and herds of cows going everywhere, so there's a lot happening, and obviously it's a stressful time for those families going to a new property, not quite sure what they'll find. We hear a lot of stories about the housing. Sometimes it's the quality of housing, sometimes it's the state it's been left in, so I guess if you're moving out, make sure you leave it in a state that you'd be happy to move into yourself.
Yeah, but the temptation's there, isn't it?
Well, it is, but I think a lot of employers do help because they include in the contract that the state the house has to be left in, and they're regularly inspecting them. But we do hear some horror stories that people arrive at the house and after a long journey, kids, family, everyone's ready to move in, and they've got to clean the house because it's in a horrible state or it's full of rubbish or all these horrible things that you hear. So really would encourage people to make sure the houses are in good state. And also, these are new people in the community. They don't know anyone, they don't know what goes on in your community, so a real call out for people to make them welcome. A lot of communities do really well. They have welcome functions, down at the hall after a couple of weeks' time, get everyone in, get to meet everyone. And some communities go right to the extent of having a mini expo, and they have all the interest groups or sports clubs have a little display and show what they do, so that the new people get to know what goes on in that community and can make some friends and find out where the squash club is or the rugby club or where the mum's morning group meets and all those things. And that's really important in helping a family get familiar in their new community and make them feel welcome.
And of course the children go to a new school.
They do, and that's a huge thing, and stressful for them and their family, and also for the children at the school, welcoming new ones in. And we do know, Education Department can tell us that when a child changes school, they lose the terms learning, just in that whole reshuffle, settling in, getting to know new children, new friends, finding out where they're at with their learning, and for the teachers to bring them up to speed with what they're doing in their class. They can actually lose up to a term in learning, and that's quite important in a child's education at different stages, particularly if they're at NCEA level and they lose a term of learning. That's really quite damaging. So we have to be very careful.
Yes, I was thinking that the
that
tittle
process,
is not the
I mean,
older
but
ones.
they change at all age groups, and certainly for the wee ones, reading and writing, and they've lost that, key part of learning. It's can be quite damaging.
New school uniforms too.
New school uniforms, very costly, school fees and things, and especially if they're moving every year. That's
which a lot of them do.
A lot of them do, and it can make a huge difference to the education of the children. So, it's a hard time.
I guess that's sort of one of the barriers, because you guys are very good
It
at
is.
seeing barriers and knocking them down.
And I think women find that really hard. They move, they've got no friends, they've lost their support network. So they come to a new location and need to build those support networks again. And we see a lot of barriers for rural women, and it's not just around social isolation. A lot of it is simply around government policies and the way projects and programs are funded. If you look, for example, at the breast screen mammogram bus, it's great, it goes out to lots of communities, but you can only use the bus if you're aged between 45 and 69. Because that's the targeted age group of where women are most at risk. So if you're outside that, you can't use the bus. You have to go to the city and pay for your mammogram. Now that's quite a barrier for a lot of women. And it just seems ridiculous that the bus might be parked in your town, but you can't use it. And that's really discriminatory. And we have a lot of silly little rules like that are quite discriminatory towards women, unintentionally so, but that's the outcome.
In that case, it's rules set by men, I suppose. But,
you're not
going to go there, are
No,
you?
I'm not going to go there today. But I think, part of that is that policies can often be set without doing a proper rural impact assessment and working out just how it will work in practice. And sometimes we have things happen that just don't work common sense wise. We see that also in support for women, particularly during times of stress. And like, for example, at the moment with the drought and the stress, all the support programs are designed to support the farmer and keep the farm business operating. But there's nothing in place for the women and children and supporting them, and it's an incredibly stressful time for them as well. So we're doing some things to help, just doing some days out and some events to help women and take the pressure off. But it is a really stressful time for the women, but there's no real support package. The support package put out by Minister of Primary Industries, MPI, the Adverse Events Funding, is for farmer support. And it's really difficult, we need to find funds and a way of supporting the women and children. And to have children growing up and living in a stress-charged environment is really can be quite damaging for them. And we also know that there's a lot of research saying that when there's adverse events and very stressful times, things like domestic violence and abuse do rocket up. And we have quite a lot of evidence. There's been research that can say it can be up to 100% increase in family violence, and it's all to do with the stress. And if there's no support for that, it makes it very hard. So in rural, we have problems where there's no women's refuge for women. And also in this last week, we saw relationship services fall over, where they provided a lot of those support services like anger management courses and parenting through difficult times, budgeting, all those things that would have helped a family are now gone from the rural sector. So we need to put a lot more effort from our government into making sure that those unintended barriers aren't there.
Because when the farmer, as you were suggesting, being the male, when he clicks, and the women have got nowhere to run to. No,
they haven't, and there's no support for them. And often, if the whole farm falls over, you've lost the house as well. So the woman's not only got her own stress of the situation, she's trying to manage the stress of her children and support her partner as well. So the stress loading on the woman is, in some cases, actually higher than it is on the farmer themselves.
And you're sitting looking down the barrel of workers who suddenly get, I'm sorry, we can't afford 3 families, we can only afford 2.
Yeah, and in those cases, it's not just that you've lost your job, you've lost your home as well.
Yep, and nobody wants to take you on because everyone's cutting back.
Everyone else is in the same position, so it becomes incredibly difficult. And in the rural sector, where all those support services seem to be spanning back into the cities, it's really hard. It's about access to the service. It's all very well to say, oh yes, well you can have counselling, you can have this and that, but in the rural sector, often those brief intervention counselling sessions, there's a 4 to 6 week wait, which is too long.
It's too late.
It's often too long. And if you can't do that and you have to go private, it's $60, $70 a time every time you go. and you may have to go to the city. So you've got all those unintentional barriers that are there around supporting women and children in the rural sector that we're really wanting to see a lot more work done. One of the problems around that
I was just going to say, quickly,
is that government won't put in place an action plan for women. Even though they've been requested to by United Nations, they won't do that.
I think you guys need to do some rattling of some
Absolutely.
cages, Kerry. Thank you very much
Thank
indeed.
you.
In just a moment, we'll be talking about trying to get young stock through the hard times as well. In young cattle such as this on a pad,
yes,
are they being treated the way grass-fed ones would?
Well, it is a bit artificial in the sense there we can control exactly what they are getting and make sure it is at the right rate daily wise, but it's comparable in the sense of what we provide if you're on good weaning, good calf tucker, yes, on a paddock.
And basically this was designed to get the rumen organised, and now because of the drought they've stayed on.
Yeah, so early weaning was always in the plan, and then and feedlotting them for a short period, just to get early rumen development and then get them out onto the pasture. But with the drought that we've had, then the pasture just hasn't been there. So they've stayed on this feedlot longer, but they've stayed healthy, yeah.
So what are they getting?
So they're on a combination of pasture-based silage and mixed with some other minerals and molasses type energy supplements, yeah.
There'll be those who would suggest that they're being pampered, but that's certainly not the case.
No, not pampered. It's fairly intensive feeding, so that means they do have to compete. So they still have to go and fight at the feed face to get their feed. So yeah, they've still got that aggressive tendency to go out and look for feed. So no, not pampering.
And Ian, I guess it's a great opportunity to see what sires are bringing what sort of weight gains into their own progeny.
Yeah, it does make the things like monitoring weight gains, and so monthly weighing, and just comparing animals with animals, so you can have them in smaller groups in their weight bands, and just look at how the different sires are performing. Yes,
because that growth rate is very, very important to a stud breeder, but also to the commercial breeder.
It's everything for your commercial breeder, because you're getting paid on if those animals that you are finishing. So that's what you're getting paid for, what goes out the gate.
Will these guys go to grass without any problem?
Yeah, no, that's their natural drive, is to go looking for grass. So yeah, if they get the opportunity, they certainly would be out that gate, onto the pasture, straight into it. Yes.
And so they'll go from here to any sort of other location.
They'd move transition-wise, feeding-wise. It's a pasture-based silage is what they're on, so the rumen won't have to adapt in any way, and there's natural tendency is to go out and look for that grass. So yeah, they'll be hungry.
And after the break, we're going to be talking about the National Ewe Hogget Contest.
Be Active begins here in the cold, clean, unpolluted southern oceans of New Zealand. Be Active amino acid biostimulant, natural, 100% pure, manufactured from healthy deep sea fish from sustainable New Zealand fisheries. New Zealand's Be Active amino acid biostimulant, the way the world is growing. Working with nature, good for the plant, good for the planet. Now that's growing for good.
We'll get you thinking, think water.
I think it's all working well, Jack.
My thoughts exactly.
We'll get you thinking, think water.
This is exactly what you need.
I think that'll do the trick.
We'll get you thinking, think water.
It's all looking good. Did you bring the sauce? I can't think of everything.
We'll get you thinking, think water.
For real ideas and real solutions, just think water.
I've been reporting on farming matters on the radio and newspapers and on television for 40 or so years, but communication, like farming, has moved on. So we've come up with On the Land, online and through YouTube on any screen, anytime and anywhere. Just push play and see and hear what's happening today in our rural community. You'll learn and be informed about the latest and best information farming matters. On the Land, bringing farming information into the 21st century. So join us on our website, ontheland.co.nz. Stephen, the New Zealand Ewe Hogget contest, it was quite a night, the presentation award dinner.
Yes, we've been looking forward to this for a long time because it's the end of a long process to get a national winner. We started this competition back in late February, early March in different areas of the country. And to go from district winners to regional winners to a national winner, with all the work that's involved with it, it takes a considerable amount of time and effort.
And judges doing a lot of mileage.
They do. So that's my job as convener, is to make sure that the judges get around the country. I do the driving, organise the timetables, the itinerary, the program of where we're going to be, when we're going to be there. So generally that takes about 4,000 kilometres over 7 days on the road.
And it's all voluntary stuff, isn't it?
Now, it is, and I think so it should be, because I think that if you get to the stage where you have to pay people to do that, well, you're not getting the right person. So these guys are totally passionate about what they're doing. So considering the hours that they spend, dark to dark, no lunch breaks, I feel the sponsors get good value for their money.
We've got to talk about sponsors shortly, but in the meantime, how widespread are the flocks this year?
Right, well, this year we travelled from Tauranga in the north to Riverton in the south. So historically the strength of the competition has been in the lower part of the South Island, because that's where it originated from, the Southland West Otago Hogger competition. And 19 years ago, from memory, it went to a national system where we went outside the province to choose a national winner. And so we're still in very much a growth phase in the North Island, trying to organise regional conveners and a more of a formal format to gather those entries and do the judging process. So it really is a national competition. I mean, this year when it got to the stage of the finals, we visited 19 flocks in the South Island and 10 in the North Island.
So what's the criteria? What are the judges looking for?
Best overall ewe hoggets, most productive ewe hoggets in their lifetime, wherever they may be. And the points, out of 100 points, 50 points go on production, the flock production. And the points have evolved over the years, so we have increased the portion of votes, or points rather, that go to production. 20% of the marks go to the phenotype of the animal, the actual physical conformation and attributes of that animal and how they reflect the breed. 15 points on wool quality and another 15 on the contestant's breeding objectives and selection criteria for what he's doing. So there's 100 points.
It's pretty complex, and it's across a lot of breeds.
Well, that's the problem. Not just across a lot of breeds, it's also, if you can understand, obviously, a huge range of environmental differences right throughout the country. So we have six breeds. We operate within the Coopworth composites crossbreeds, fine wool Perindale, and amongst all those other in the Romneys, but they're all facing different environmental challenges. So you've got that aspect plus the different breeds, and awarding the points associated with those problems.
Which is not easy for the judges, Stephen.
It's not, but to get a bit of compatibility or continuity rather into the process, we have 3 judges. So every year one will revolve off the judging panel and we'll introduce another one, just to get a feel of what's required to get a winner. And despite all those changes and challenges that we have in front of us, it's ultimately the top flock basically picks itself, because there's always one that's quite outstanding, and you never know whether it's going to be the first flock you'll see or the last flock you're going to see.
So you must put some sort of a baseline when you see your first flock and you say, okay, that's the benchmark, everything else is either better or inferior to it.
Yeah, each judge has a different way of assessing the flocks, and it's interesting actually, 7 days on the road, there's very little talk between them. They quietly go about and award their marks, and then when it comes to the final evening on tour, we sit down with the computer and calculator, and that's when they start to divulge their points. And it's really quite interesting, because by and large they're all in sync with each other. Some might be scoring higher and some lower, but in actual fact they all pick the winner together.
Let's cut to the chase. Who are the section winners?
The section winners this year, we've got the Coopworths from Riverton, Graham and Raven Black. We've got the composite winners from Wendonside, north of Gore, Bevan and Wendy Hopcroft. We have the crossbreds from the Otteries, Hamish and Sarah Ottery at Tapanui. The Perrindales went to Alan and Leanne Woodrow at Waikana, Mataura, and by now you're thinking, hang on, this is very much a Southland
I was just going to say, excuse me, anything north of the Waitaki?
and actually, I'll carry on with the winners. The fine wool one came from 9 Mile Pastoral, which is a property owned by Gordon Lucas, a well-known high country station in Terrace. And the Romneys went to Bevan and Prudence Butler at Waipawa. Now, as a convener and wanting this competition to grow to a new level in the north, I'm always keen to get more prizes to the north if we possibly can, which leads to more exposure. But however, the points just didn't allow it this year.
Well, that was where the top flocks were.
Exactly, and when you look at the score sheet, the judges got it right, and those winning flocks scored well where they had to. So you want to know the overall winner, of course?
We'd better have a drum roll or something. No, please, who was the overall?
The overall winner this year is Bevan and Wendy Hopcroft from Wendon side in northern Southland.
And was it a big margin or was it tight?
It was by a couple of points. Yes, it was. It was by a good margin, considering the standard of the flocks that were following in behind. Very close. And I guess the most pleasing thing about this is after you've been involved for a number of years, there's, for example, this year, 4, maybe 5 of those breed winners would have won it any other year previously. So that just indicates to me that the bar's continually rising. And so we're getting value out of the competition in that respect.
Tell me about the sponsors, please.
We've got a family of sponsors really, and they all take an equal part. We've got the Alliance Group. We have Countrywide magazine sponsoring as well. And so we get a lot of articles in that publication, a great publication. Muriel Anke have been a sponsor for a long time since it was first started. And True Test as well, and Ravensdown. So they've been a family of sponsors for a long time. And
they're all great supporters of farming, aren't they?
They are. Yeah. And it must be difficult for them to justify sponsorship, and how do you quantify the feedback or the money's returns that they would expect? And it's very, very difficult.
Well, the good thing is that they're going to be, because of you, they're going to be on the Land website, so they'll get it from there.
Well, that's good news for them, exactly, and well done.
And of course, very, very briefly, it wasn't an easy season for anybody this year.
No, it wasn't. No. It's either too flat, too steep, too dry, too wet. But what we've found out, or what I've observed over the years, is that no matter where these farmers are, it's the contestants that make the right decisions at the right time always succeed. So even though conditions are tough in their local area, they're always achieving well above the average or the normal. So that's interesting.
Stephen, thank you very much indeed. In just a moment, we'll be talking about colostrum tanks, because that's coming around pretty soon. Tony, white tanks for colostrum.
Yep, it's that season again when we start thinking about storing the surplus milk that basically can't be sent to the factory at the beginning of the season. First 4 days is generally stored for calf rearing. We believe that this year will probably be quite a big year for the tanks, in the respect that with the low milk price, we think that farmers might try and be a little bit versatile, rear a few extra calves and capitalise on the high beef prices with this relatively low value milk.
They're obviously used for more than just those first 4 days though.
Yeah, absolutely. They, the bigger calf rearing operations will buy them and mix their milk powder in them in bulk, and then take it out in trailers to feed the various groups. There's a whole range of sizes. All of our tank sizes can be made in the colostrum material, which is opaque to allow it to see just what's in it. And they're a more economical solution for the temporary storage of milk.
And Tony, the colour's not going to attract the heat, it's actually going to reflect it?
Yeah, white is certainly going to be the coolest, and it's, dare I say it, it's easy to see whether it needs cleaned and kept right. So, you know, to that end, you know, often they'll put a cleaning rose in the top and put an automatic cleaning system in it.
So pretty hygienic.
Yeah. Not that you'd think so sometimes when you look around, but it's certainly relatively easy to clean. Yep.
What's the price range?
Oh well, it goes along with the tank range. I think that they start off at a couple of $100, but of course, sort of $3,000 for 30,000 litres. And interestingly enough, we sell quite a number of 30,000 litre tanks into this range.
And it is part of your range of tanks, which is actually quite large now.
Yeah, it is, and we just use a different material for the colostrum, but it's you know, right from 500 litres to 30,000 litres, and sort of goes up in various increments to suit whatever requirement the farmer might have.
And what's the availability? Because next season's not all that far away.
Yeah, I mean, colostrum's an interesting one in that it's a colostrum season. We've got our early bird specials out at the moment to try and get a gauge of the size of the market. Sometimes we get caught and you know, we can get up to a 2-week delay if we don't time it right, but we're building up reasonably good stocks at the moment based on the early bird orders that we've got.
I guess you could say a tank for every season. After the break, we're going to be talking to one of the regional finalists from this year's Young Farmer of the Year, and it'll be an interview, warts and all.
We'll get you thinking, think water.
I think it's all working well, Jack.
My thoughts exactly.
We'll get you thinking, think water.
This is exactly what you need.
I think that'll do the trick.
We'll get you thinking, think water.
It's all looking good. Did you bring the sauce? I can't think of everything.
Think water.
For real ideas and real solutions, just think water.
I've been reporting on farming matters on the radio and newspapers and on television for 40 or so years, but communication, like farming, has moved on. So we've come up with On the Land, online and through YouTube on any screen, anytime and anywhere. Just push play and see and hear what's happening today in our rural community. You'll learn and be informed about the latest and best information farming matters. On the Land, bringing farming information into the 21st century. So join us on our website, ontheland.co.nz.
You know that saying, content is king? Well, in today's mixed media world, it's true. You need video, audio, photos and more for social media, for marketing, for communications, sales and for advertising. And you need this at a price that works with your budgets. Well, that's what we do. At Tandem, we partner with you to create the content that you can use to shout to the world or video link to a few. Connect with us and we'll help you connect to the world.
What's your background? What are you doing?
So we're dairy farming in Winton, 50-50 share milkers, and going to a larger job 1st of June, continuing the dairy industry.
So the outlook is pretty good. You're striving to get your own ownership?
Yeah, definitely. No, the outlook's to a farm ownership within 5 years, so we're still tracking that way. Yeah.
Had a good season?
Yep, we've worked with it. It's been challenging, weather and payout wise, but no, we're working with it and we'll get there.
So at Winton, no irrigation. In fact, you're probably trying to take water off, are you, rather than put it on?
Yeah, through to November we're trying to get rid of it. And of late we've had a pretty good autumn, so there's been no too many issues for the second half of the season.
Winton, have you got restrictions on urea and things in there?
No, not yet, no.
It's coming?
Well, it'll change in the foreseeable future like the whole rest of the country is. Yeah, we'll just work with it when it arrives.
Now, tell me about Young Farmers as the challenge of the contest. Why did you enter?
Entered Young Farmers for a start to sort of network with people that are like-minded, and then entered the contest to just compare yourself and benchmark yourself with where you sit in the industry, and always be at that upper level so you can sort of strive ahead.
Interesting that you probably have to have a very broad knowledge. I mean, you're going to get questions on cropping, horticulture and sheep and kip beef.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, and I've done a BCom Ag at Lincoln, so we've sort of been associated with that while we were there, and got a lot of friends and people within the club that have been associated with those farming practices. So yeah, we've got people we can rely on to feed us information and questions.
And of course you just got to keep reading and learning and listening.
Indeed, yep. The world's forever changing, and so do the questions. So no, just keeping up with current affairs and all the new industry practices is probably key.
So speaking of keys, what's the key to getting dairying back on a strong footing?
Just ride through it. It's just a wave, like any industry. So if you can get through these next sort of 2 seasons, yeah, you'll be more than comfortable and still get to where you want to be.
So it's just bite the bullet and swallow hard.
Indeed, yep. And keep talking to people, all your professionals, let them know what's happening. Yeah, don't go into a room by yourself, and no, you'll get there.
John, stress everywhere.
Rob, it seems to be our favourite topic when we turn up, but it's the nature of the world. I think it's the problem of modernity itself. And right now I would say out on the dairy farm, it would be hitting peak levels that people have probably not faced for many years. And there's a number of contributing factors to that, of course. I mean, they're starting from what was a very good base, and then it's rapidly gone down, and then people possibly thought that was going to last a little longer than they did, and may not have financially set themselves properly for that. And now they're looking the bank manager in the eye, and they find that what was all smiles last year tends to have turned to a bit of a grimace or even a growl. And so people are looking at uncertainty, and uncertainty is singularly our biggest cause of stress. It's a funny thing that, I mean, it's like the person who goes away for the blood test for the potentially nasty disease, right? They almost feel better when they hear bad news than they did before they were waiting for the news, because uncertainty, once you know what the bad news is, at least you know what you're dealing with. Whereas uncertainty creates this sense of potential danger, and it's primitive. It goes right back to when we were wandering a savanna plain somewhere through the scrub and amongst the big rocks, and we're wondering what's just around the corner.
And this is what makes people go quiet, and they sweep it under the carpet because they don't want to know.
Well, stress, if the neurotransmitters, you know, the neurology involved in stress runs long enough, it moves into other morbid states, and particularly it can move into depression, and that's the thing you've got to watch for. And depression shows up as sleeplessness, low libido, incommunicative, or if you're communicating, anger, and when it gets to its worst state, it's almost a disengagement, you know, and that's what you've really got to watch for, because the person is totally in their own head there, and all they're doing is mulling over disaster.
And that leads to all sorts of things which can be fatal.
Well, it's why I think, you know, it's why at times we see a sudden peak in rural suicides, and it's a tragedy. Because in the end, of course, what people sometimes forget is they're sitting on pretty sizable assets, and you know, if worse came to worse, they'd still be fairly well off if they simply cashed up and got out, in a lot of them.
But they can't see that.
But they can't see that, because the nature, of course, of it is we catastrophise, and we get narrow and narrow and narrow in our vision. And that's where friends and family can come in, and support services can come in and be of real value, life-saving value.
See, to me, you don't talk about it, you hide it, so your best bet is to actually talk to someone who's totally apolitical, like yourself, or a GP.
Yep, you can't talk to your doctor, can't talk to...
Because that's all in confidence, isn't it? That's...
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, and you can say, look, man, I made some of the worst financial decisions I've ever made. You know, I'm almost trading insolvent. You can even say I am trading insolvent, and I suspect there is no legal obligation for anyone in the health sector to go and tell any regulator. In fact, I'm sure there's not. That's not their job, it's not their area. But if you need to talk to a person about it who you know can be completely empathetic and provide an objectivity to it, they're the person. Plus practical support. I mean, you know, if you come and talk to someone like me, you'll no doubt have serious aches and pains and poor sleep and all those other things, many of which you can intervene with. Your GP also will have some tricks of the trade that they can intervene with, and also refer you to support services and get some help.
And once again, they're totally apolitical. You've got
Totally
no
apolitical.
problem at all talking to somebody who's there to, in many cases, to train you, to train your mind.
Yeah, and often to get you and go, listen, look over here. There's actually quite a bit over here. Look here, this is your family. There's some really good stuff going on here. These are the people to talk to as well. But I still think support services amongst friends is some of the strongest and amongst family. So if you've got a neighbour and you know he's in a bit of grief, you know, you may not be able to help him out much, but go and have a chat. Pull him in and have a beer. Nothing wrong with that. Sometimes if someone just unburdens, and then you can also, you can say, look, hell, I remember the drought of 85, or I remember,
we got through that one.
Yeah, I remember when interest rates, right,
with 22%.
Well, getting close to triple figures, you know. I mean, so, and invariably the rural sector pulls through because we're still sitting on big assets, and the one thing we can rely on, right, is the world's getting wealthier and the world's getting hungrier.
Yeah,
so there'll always be, in the end, a market.
On a personal note, I mean, I've been through depression and it was pretty serious. I'm now talking about it to people.
Yep.
And I would suggest that majority of people I speak to said, yeah, I've had depression. Not nice down there, is it?
No, I think, look, there's not a person out there who doesn't feel low at times, right? If they do, they're either weird or lying, one or the other, right? If they tell you that. And so to feel flat is a normal state or a normal part of our process of living, right? When it gets down to a deep depression, right, you're still joining a very, very large cohort of the population, right? So it's not an unusual condition, tragically, but it is one that most of us recover from and recover from completely and do fine. There is light at the end of the tunnel.
Yep, and I can vouch for that.
Yeah.
Now, winter's not helping.
No, winter doesn't help because we also get the impact of season. We have a problem called seasonal affective disorder. You know, people walk around with sunglasses up here.
Yeah.
In winter, that's the only place to have them. You've got to get light through your eyes to build melatonin levels. And if you don't build melatonin levels, you don't sleep. So that's the other thing is we tend to sort of hover in our caves a bit, you know, whether you're in a workshop sharpening chisels or whatever. You're better off out getting a bit of sun, that helps. And you need to get sun on your skin because there's no better way to make vitamin D. You can take it as cod liver oil, that's another way of getting it, cheap and effective. But nothing beats sun on your skin. So if it's a relatively hot day, strip down to your undies and dance between the hay bales. You know?
The mental picture of some of the farmers I know.
No, there's no doubt about it. Fred's lost it.
But make sure all the children are at school for
yeah.
Don't do it at the weekends.
Yeah.
So winter is basically a good time if you can justify, well, if you can afford it, get the hell out of here, go to the islands or somewhere.
Yeah. This is the time of year to go off and help the Rarotongan economy. Yeah, it's definitely. It's more towards late winter that seasonal affective disorder really kicks in. So it gets worse around August.
Which is calving.
Which is calving and lambing, yes. So maybe July, you know, that a boost just before that, even a week away is enough to sort of get you up and going and recharge the batteries and get you running.
You once told me that you need a fortnight because you need a week to heal, and then sorry, it was basically a week to get over it and then a week to sort of get a buffer.
Yeah, I'm talking to the farmer who goes, I can't afford 2 weeks. I go, right, we'll do one then.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I would agree. The best holiday is 2 weeks.
And if you've already got a $3 million mortgage, what's another couple of $1,000?
You'll think better. You will make sharper, more efficient, economic, better decisions. Yeah? So people sit there, oh, I can't afford it. I don't think you can afford not to do it. You don't say, oh, I can't afford to put oil in the tractor. You sit there and go, $80,000 tractor, $20,000 engine repair.
Another John O'Malley quote was, well, if you don't want to go on holiday, you don't want to help yourself, I'm not going to help you. And you said, you don't ring me again for another appointment.
I have done that, but I'm very cautious about doing that because I only do it with people I know it'll work. I don't want the person to go, and that's the last bugger to let me down and then do something serious. But, you know, sometimes there is nothing other people can do except for perhaps prop you up to send you on away, and, you know, and so even the winterless north's probably not a bad spot for a holiday this time of year.
John, thank you very much indeed. I'm Rob Cope-Williams. You've either been watching or you've just missed On the Land, but I will be back with another version of it the same time next week. Until then, bye now.